I had given Barack $250 to pay for coke. I just started rubbing my hand along his thigh to see where it was going, and it went the direction I had intended it to go.
So up first, we've got to talk about this bombshell story from Tucker Carlson, formerly of Fox News, who's now independent and doing a show on X. He just released an interview with a man, Larry Sinclair, who claims that he had sex with Barack Obama and did drugs with him in the 1990s. Take a look at this clip.
You're just a guy who's in town for the night, and it sounds like you're looking to party.
Yeah. Pulled up in a bar outside, and there's this guy that's introduced to me as Barack Obama. I had given Barack $250 to pay for coke. I start putting a line on a CD tray to snort, and next thing I know, he's got a little pipe and he's smoking. So I just started rubbing my hand along his thigh to see where it was going, and it went the direction I had intended it to go.
Even though you had sex with him twice, you did cocaine with him, watched him smoke crack twice, you had no idea who he was.
I had no idea who he was.
Let me just ask the obvious question. What was Obama like on crack? Is it your sense that that's who Obama is, just transactional, or that he's bisexual, or what is this?
It definitely wasn't Barack's first time, and I would almost be willing to bet you it wasn't his last.
The guy's running for president, and credible information comes out that he's smoking crack and having sex with dudes. That seems like a story.
Well, it would be a story if the media really cared about telling people the truth.
That's right. Breaking news. Obama was the first gay president, and apparently a crackhead? Now, I watched this full interview so that you didn't have to, and I'm not happy that I have to report this, but while Tucker Carlson has the capacity to be a great and difficult and critical interviewer when he wants to be, in this case, he just uncritically parroted claims from somebody that are really unsubstantiated and from somebody who's just not credible. After all, this isn't actually a new allegation. Larry Sinclair came forward with this in 2008, but because he was very sketchy in his background and had no evidence or corroboration of any meaningful kind, people basically ignored it. I'm not really sure why Tucker's deciding to recirculate it now, because there's not any new news updates or evidence that somehow makes it newsworthy. Not really. I guess it's just an opportunity to bring in clicks and eyeballs with a salacious story? But the result was a deeply misleading interview that misled millions of viewers by omitting key facts and, frankly, betraying journalistic ethics. For one thing, when Carlson's introducing Sinclair and presenting his guest as credible, he mentions that Sinclair signed a sworn affidavit and took a lie detector test. Now, this is supposed to make us believe that his allegations are more serious. He's willing to put his pen to paper, he's willing to sign his name under penalty of perjury, and he was willing to sit down and take a lie detector test. But Carlson fails to mention that Sinclair failed that test. I don't understand why Tucker would have omitted that from the interview. It seems like a key detail, and omitting it really misleads the audience. I do want to be clear, though, that lie detector tests aren't actually dispositive. So the fact that he failed it doesn't mean what he said is false, because it's highly disputed in scientific community whether lie detector tests are actually reliable. But to present the lie detector test as evidence of credibility and not mention the fact that he failed it is a dereliction of journalistic duty. The other key omission in Carlson's interview is that this guy who's accusing Obama has an extensive criminal history that includes forgery, fraud, and deceit. Here's how Ben Smith summarized Sinclair's criminal history, reporting for Politico back in 2008. Public records and court filings reveal that he has a 27-year criminal record with specialty in crimes involving deceit. The record includes forgery charges in 2 states, one of which drew Sinclair a 16-year jail sentence. The Pueblo County, Colorado Sheriff's Office also has an outstanding warrant for Sinclair's arrest for forging an acquaintance's signature and stealing her tax refunds. And Sinclair allegedly continued his criminal activity while he was in prison. Smith further reports, in prison, according to state records filed in federal court, Sinclair was disciplined 97 times for infractions including assault, threats, drug possession, intimidation, and verbal abuse, most recently in 1996. The Politico story also notes that Sinclair operated under 13 different aliases in Colorado. He had a bunch of fake names that he did business or was known as. And sorry, but that's not typically a sign of credibility or trustworthiness. Yet it was never mentioned in the Tucker interview. Those did briefly mention Sinclair's criminal history during the interview, but he kind of waved it away, and he didn't get into any of the specifics about how it's not unrelated, right? It specifically was crimes involving forgery and fraud and deceit. You'd think those details would be pretty relevant when we're trying to assess the credibility of somebody accusing a controversial political figure of both criminal and scandalous activity. It's also frustrating to me that in the 40-plus minute interview he presented to his millions of viewers, Carlson never reckons with just how implausible this story is. Back in 1999, when this event supposedly occurred, Obama was a sitting state senator. And both Obama's haters and his fans, they've always both acknowledged he's an extraordinarily ambitious guy, and he always has been. Very early on in his career, he had ambitions of higher office. So why would he be doing drugs and hooking up with strangers in public, cheating on his wife casually with a complete stranger who is a man in 1999? Even if Obama was engaging in this type of behavior, and we don't have evidence of that, but he would be doing it in a much more discreet way than this. This doesn't make sense even at face value. So what we have here is an old, implausible allegation with no real evidence or corroboration from somebody who is not credible. That shouldn't be considered newsworthy, let alone credulously promoted as basically true to millions of viewers, which is what Tucker did. He didn't present this just as allegations even, or just asking questions. I mean, at one point, he just objectively refers to Sinclair as the only person on this set who has had sex with Barack Obama. That's basically just promoting the allegations as fact, and in interviews elsewhere, Carlson has said that these allegations were obviously true, which I just don't know how you reach that conclusion based on everything we've heard. Obama was probably not America's first gay president, but even if he was, this story is a conspiracy theory with no evidence. It is not something that should be taken seriously or promoted credulously, and it is frankly a disgrace that Tucker Carlson did this interview in this manner. It's also a betrayal of journalistic ethics, and in fact, it echoes the very same behavior that Tucker has for a long time rightly decried on behalf of liberal media outlets when they do this kind of thing against right-wing political figures. Take a listen to this clip of Tucker talking about journalistic ethics.
You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year.
Now, think about what he just said. Does that not apply to this interview he just did? I think it applies 100%. Don't forget that the right, including Tucker Carlson repeatedly on many occasions, argued during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation debacle that it wasn't fair to condemn or judge a political figure based on an allegation by one person with no evidence. This was, you remember, when Christine Blasey Ford accused Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault back in his high school days. I agreed with figures on the right who said that we should have due process in the court of public opinion and not condemn people based on evidenceless and far-fetched allegations. Yet they're now taking a different standard, Tucker and his supporters, because it's Obama instead of a conservative judge. Even though, in that case, the accuser wasn't even a convicted fraudster. That's partisan hypocrisy, that's tribalism, that's a betrayal of principles, and frankly, it's not something I'll ever be on board with. Now, defenders of Tucker's approach are basically arguing that turnabout is fair play. Liberal media smears the right and acts without ethics, so we should do the same. Take a listen to what Tim Pool, a right-wing YouTuber, had to say about this very topic.
Legitimate political reason. Well, let me slow down. There's no legitimate factual reason to interview a con artist and crackhead who's making these absurd claims. I'm not a fan of this. I wasn't a fan of it when they did it to Brett Kavanaugh. I'm not a fan of it now. That being said, I applaud Tucker Carlson for doing it. You know why? Welcome to the tit for tat world of politics. So to clarify, there's a political reason to do this, to attack the Democrats, I guess, to make them look like degenerates, to strike at the credibility of the Obamas, maybe to prevent Michelle Obama from gaining traction or to create just some negative press around the Obamas. Fine, whatever. Simply put, the Democrats, the left, and the media in this country entertained the most psychotic lies you could imagine about Brett Kavanaugh. Tucker Carlson is simply engaging in the exact same behavior.
I completely disagree. Just because the other side is doing something doesn't mean it's ethical or okay for us to adopt the same tactics. Preschoolers are taught that two wrongs don't make a right. And frankly, I just need to live with myself at the end of the day. And that means I have to hold myself to a high ethical standard and be fair, even if other people aren't. Tucker Carlson and his allies, at least in this case, are becoming everything they say they hate about the liberal media. And that's something I want absolutely nothing to do with.